What if the most dangerous enemy wasn't a foreign power, but the secrets your own government keeps from you? Welcome to the Purple Files. If you enjoy our videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get right into it. For decades, whispers of secret programs, false justifications for war, and hidden truths have haunted the corridors of power. While many conspiracy theories are just that, theories, some are backed by chilling evidence, declassified files, and the words of insiders who dared to speak out. We've sifted through the archives and the official denials to bring you 7 of the most significant government cover-ups they really don't want you to know about. We're counting them down, from shocking secrets to the one that changes everything. Kicking off our countdown at number 7 is the event that has been called the mother of all modern conspiracy theories, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. On November 22, 1963, the 35th President of the United States was shot and killed in Dallas, Texas, an act that traumatized a nation and birthed decades of doubt, suspicion, and the unshakable feeling of a deep state cover-up. The official story, presented by the Warren Commission, concluded that a lone gunman, a former Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald, fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, killing the president. This explanation was cemented by the controversial single bullet theory, which claimed one bullet caused multiple wounds to both President Kennedy and Governor John Connally. Oswald himself was never put on trial. 2 days after his arrest, he was murdered on live television by a nightclub owner named Jack Ruby, a bizarre event that only deepened the mystery. But from the very beginning, the official narrative was plagued with inconsistencies. The famous Zapruder film, the only known complete recording of the assassination, seemed to show the fatal headshot driving the president's head backward, suggesting a shot from the front, from the infamous grassy knoll, not from Oswald's position behind. Dozens of eyewitnesses reported hearing shots from multiple directions, and Oswald's own background, with his mysterious connections to both American and Soviet intelligence, raised more questions than answers. Here is where the cover-up truly takes shape. For decades, the United States government has held on to thousands of secret files related to the assassination. Despite the President John F. Kennedy's Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, which mandated the release of all related documents, successive administrations have repeatedly delayed the declassification of the final batch of records. Thousands of documents remain heavily redacted or completely withheld, most often under the justification of protecting national security, intelligence sources, and methods. Why, over 6 decades later, is there still information deemed too sensitive for the public to see? Critics argue that this secrecy is not about protecting sources, but about concealing the complicity of American intelligence agencies, such as the Central Intelligence Agency or the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Did these agencies know about a plot and fail to stop it? Or, as the darkest theories suggest, were elements within the government actively involved? The refusal to provide full transparency has transformed public suspicion into a near certainty for many that the official story of a lone gunman is a lie, designed to cover a much more complex and terrifying truth. The secret files they still won't release aren't just protecting history. They are fueling the belief that the full story of who killed JFK and why is a secret the government intends to keep forever. Coming in at number 6 is a cover-up that strikes at the very heart of a free society, the public's right to unbiased information. It's known by the codename Operation Mockingbird, an alleged large-scale program by the Central Intelligence Agency to manipulate the news. The mission was simple and sinister: to turn the most trusted journalists and media outlets into assets, using them to spread propaganda, discredit foreign governments, and shape public opinion both at home and abroad. The story begins in the early years of the Cold War, a time of intense paranoia and ideological struggle. The Central Intelligence Agency, then a young organization, believed it was necessary to fight a war of information against the Soviets. According to investigators and whistleblowers, Operation Mockingbird was their primary weapon in this war. The CIA allegedly recruited hundreds of American journalists, some of them from the most respected news organizations in the country, to work for the agency. These journalists would provide intelligence, publish stories written by the CIA, and suppress information that went against the agency's objectives. In essence, the news you read wasn't always the truth. Sometimes, it was a carefully crafted narrative serving a hidden agenda. For years, Operation Mockingbird was dismissed by many as just another wild conspiracy theory. That changed in 1975. A congressional investigation led by Senator Frank Church, known as the Church Committee, began to uncover the CIA's secret activities. The committee's final report confirmed the core of the allegations. It revealed in stark, official language that the Central Intelligence Agency had maintained a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provided intelligence for the CIA, and sometimes attempted to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. The report also confirmed secret relationships with American journalists and media companies. The true cover-up, however, lies in the details that were never revealed. The Church Committee's report was heavily redacted, and the full list of journalists and media outlets who cooperated with the agency has never been officially released. The CI claimed that most of these relationships were terminated in the years following the investigation, but critics argue that the practice never truly stopped. It simply became more sophisticated and harder to detect. Operation Mockingbird represents a profound betrayal of public trust. It proved that a secret branch of the government was willing and able to manipulate the very information citizens depend on to make democratic decisions. It leaves us with a deeply unsettling question. If they did it then, are they still doing it now? And how can we ever be certain that the news we consume today is the truth, and not just a modern echo of a mockingbird's song? At number 5, we tackle the single most famous UFO case in history, an event that has become the blueprint for every alien cover-up theory that followed. This is the story of Roswell. In July of 1947, something fell from the sky and crashed in the remote desert of New Mexico. What it was depends on who you ask and when you ask them, because the official story has changed multiple times, revealing a cover-up of staggering proportions. The incident began when a rancher named Mac Brazel discovered a field of strange debris. He reported it to the local authorities, and soon the Roswell Army Airfield was on the scene. On July 8, 1947, the base's public information officer issued a stunning press release announcing to the world that they had recovered a flying disc. The story was picked up by newspapers across the country. For a brief moment, it seemed the government had just confirmed that we are not alone. But then, the cover-up began. Within 24 hours, the military swiftly retracted the story. High-ranking officials held a press conference claiming the entire incident was a mistake. The mysterious flying disc was, they said, nothing more than a mundane weather balloon. They even posed for photos with the flimsy-looking debris to prove it. The story was officially killed, and for decades, that was the final word. But the eyewitnesses never forgot what they saw. Decades later, as they were no longer bound by threats of secrecy, many came forward. Major Jesse Marcel, the intelligence officer who first handled the debris, insisted until his death that it was no weather balloon. He described lightweight metallic I-beams with strange hieroglyphic-like markings and a foil-like material that could not be burned, bent, or even dented. Other witnesses spoke of a second crash site, of being threatened into silence by military police, and, most chillingly, of seeing small, non-human bodies being recovered from the wreckage. Faced with mounting public pressure in the 1990s, the United States Air Force changed its story again. They now admitted the weather balloon story was a lie. The debris they claimed was actually from Project Mogul, a top-secret, high-altitude balloon project designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. And the alien bodies? The government later explained those away as misidentified memories of crash test dummies. So what really crashed in the New Mexico desert? A simple weather balloon, a top-secret spy device, or something else entirely? The government's own admission that they lied for 50 years, combined with their constantly shifting explanations, is what makes the Roswell incident the ultimate cover-up. They weren't just hiding a weather balloon. The only question is, what were they really hiding? Entering our countdown at number 4 is a plan so diabolical it sounds like the plot of a movie, but it was all too real. This is Operation Northwoods, a declassified government proposal that proves the concept of a false flag attack is not a conspiracy theory, but a documented military strategy. The plan was to have the United States government secretly commit acts of terrorism against its own citizens and blame it on Cuba, creating the public and political will to invade the island nation. The year was 1962. Tensions between the United States and Fidel Castro's Cuba were at an all-time high. The top brass at the Pentagon, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff, were desperate for a reason to go to war. So they drafted and approved a document titled Justification for United States Military Intervention in Cuba. This document, now known as Operation Northwoods, was presented to the Secretary of Defense. The specifics of the plan were horrifying. The proposals included staging terrorist attacks in American cities like Miami and Washington, D.C., launching a terror campaign against Cuban refugees in Florida to generate sympathy, and even a plan to remotely hijack a civilian airliner, fill it with college students, and have it shot down, with the blame falling squarely on Castro. One of the most detailed proposals involved blowing up a United States naval ship in Guantanamo Bay and blaming Cuba, a direct echo of the Remember the Maine incident that helped start the Spanish-American War. The plan was the brainchild of the highest levels of the American military. It was a cold, calculated strategy to deceive the American public and the international community into supporting a war. The only thing that stopped this from happening was President John F. Kennedy. When the plan was presented to him, he personally rejected it, appalled by the idea of the military murdering its own citizens for political gain. The cover-up here wasn't about hiding a crime that happened, but about concealing the sinister intentions within the halls of power. For nearly 40 years, the existence of Operation Northwoods remained a secret, buried in classified files. Its declassification in the late 1990s provided chilling, undeniable proof of how far some leaders are willing to go. It serves as a terrifying reminder that sometimes the most dangerous plots are not hatched by foreign enemies, but by figures sworn to protect us. At number 3, we have a cover-up that wasn't just a plan, but an executed deception that plunged the United States into one of its longest and most divisive conflicts. This is the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the lie that served as the official justification for the entire Vietnam War. In August of 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson addressed the nation with grim news. He claimed that North Vietnamese patrol boats had launched 2 separate, unprovoked attacks against 2 American destroyers, the USS Maddox and the USS Turner Joy, in international waters in the Gulf of Tonkin. Portraying this as an act of naked aggression, Johnson used the incident to rush the Gulf of Tonkin resolution through Congress. The resolution gave him the authority to use whatever military force he deemed necessary in Southeast Asia, all without a formal declaration of war. The American public, believing their country was under attack, rallied behind the president. But the official story was a deliberate distortion of the truth. Declassified documents and testimony from those who were there have since proven it. The first attack was not unprovoked. The USS Maddox was not on a routine patrol. It was conducting electronic espionage missions in support of South Vietnamese commando raids against The North Vietnamese were not aggressors. They were responding to an American warship, assisting in attacks on their territory. Even more damning is the truth about the second attack, the one that truly galvanized Congress and the public. It almost certainly never happened. The crew of the USS Turner Joy was operating in bad weather on a dark night. The enemy torpedoes, they reported, were most likely false readings from their own sonar, reflecting off the ship's rudder during sharp turns. A squadron commander on the scene even sent a cable back to Washington urging caution, stating that the reports were doubtful and that a complete evaluation was needed. But the Johnson administration didn't want an evaluation. They wanted a war. They ignored the doubts, suppressed the conflicting intelligence, and presented a fabricated story to Congress and the American people as fact. This single cover-up led to the deployment of hundreds of thousands of American troops, a conflict that lasted for over a decade and resulted in the deaths of more than 58,000 Americans and millions of Vietnamese. The Gulf of Tonkin incident stands as one of the most consequential government lies in modern history. At number 2, we confront one of the most shameful and morally bankrupt episodes in American history. This wasn't a military plot or a political lie, but a 4-decade-long medical atrocity hidden in plain sight. This was the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male, a name that sanitizes a horrifying truth. The United States government actively withheld life-saving treatment from hundreds of poor African American men, turning them into unwitting subjects in a deadly experiment. The study began in 1932, run by the United States Public Health Service. Researchers recruited 600 African American men in Macon County, Alabama, 399 who had syphilis and 201 who did not. The men were told they were being treated for bad blood and were given free medical exams, meals, and burial insurance. In reality, they were being studied to observe the full, brutal progression of syphilis if left untreated. The core of the cover-up is what happened next. In the 1940s, penicillin became the standard, effective cure for syphilis. But the men in the Tuskegee study were never told. The government doctors running the experiment not only withheld the cure, but took active steps to prevent the men from getting treatment elsewhere. They were secretly watched for 40 years as the disease ravaged their bodies, causing blindness, insanity, and organ failure. Dozens died directly from syphilis, wives contracted the disease, and children were born with congenital syphilis. This was not a secret from the medical community. The study's results were published in medical journals for decades. The cover-up was a conspiracy of silence, an agreement among government health officials that the scientific value of their study was more important than the lives of the men they were sworn to protect. The truth was finally exposed in 1972, not by the government, but by an Associated Press reporter named Gene Heller. The public outcry was immediate and immense, leading to the study's termination. While the government eventually paid a settlement to the survivors and their families, no one was ever prosecuted for their role in this medical torture. The Tuskegee experiment remains a terrifying testament to what can happen when official power dehumanizes a group of its own citizens. A 40-year secret that stands as one of the darkest stains on American history. And finally, taking the #1 spot on our list of government cover-ups is a program so profoundly sinister it reads like a science fiction nightmare. This was the top-secret, illegal quest by the Central Intelligence Agency to master the ultimate weapon, the human mind. This was Project MK. From 1953 to 1973, the CIA conducted hundreds of clandestine experiments on human subjects, attempting to develop techniques for mind control, interrogation, and psychological torture. The program's goal was to find ways to manipulate mental states and brain functions, creating everything from a truth serum to programmable amnesiac assassins. To achieve this, the agency went to horrifying lengths. They dosed thousands of unwitting American and Canadian citizens with high-potency LSD and other drugs. They subjected people to hypnosis, sensory deprivation, verbal and sexual abuse, and other forms of psychological torture. The experiments took place in universities, hospitals, and prisons. The subjects were often the most vulnerable members of society: mental patients, prisoners, and drug addicts. People who could not fight back. In one infamous case, the CIA set up fake brothels in San Francisco, hired prostitutes to lure men in, and then secretly drugged them with LSD, while agents watched from behind two-way mirrors, studying their behavior. The program was directly responsible for at least one death and likely contributed to many more. The true cover-up, and the reason MK is #1, is what the CIA did when they realized they were about to be exposed. In 1973, with congressional investigations looming, the CIA director, Richard Helms, ordered all files related to the project to be destroyed. It was a deliberate, systematic attempt to erase a 20-year history of illegal and unethical human experimentation from the official record. A small cache of 20,000 documents survived only because they had been misfiled. It is from these surviving files, and the testimony of brave survivors during the Church Committee hearings, that we know the horrifying truth of what happened. Project MK was not a theory. It was a fact. It was a secret war waged by an intelligence agency against its own people, and the deliberate destruction of the evidence is the ultimate proof that they knew exactly what they were doing was unforgivable. From secret wars to medical torture to the quest for mind control, the scope of these cover-ups is staggering. They are not just stories, they are documented events proven by declassified files and eyewitness accounts. They reveal a chilling truth, that the institutions designed to protect us are sometimes capable of the most profound betrayals. Exposing these secrets is not about promoting paranoia, it's about demanding accountability. It's a reminder that a healthy democracy depends on transparency, and that the first step to preventing history from repeating itself is to know the truth of what came before. The truth matters because without it, we are all left in the dark. And that is it. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the Purple Files. Click the like button and drop a comment down below. More videos to come. And until then, thanks for watching.